At first, people didn't want to believe it, when clips and screenshots began circulating again, showing Claressa Shields shifting her tone, her stance, and her story for what felt like the third time fans hesitated before reacting. There was a pause online, a collective moment of silence where supporters tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Because this didn't feel like another viral misunderstanding. It wasn't one comment taken out of context or a clip stripped of nuance. This time, the change felt unmistakable. The energy was different. And the internet, for once, wasn't eager to explain it away. Claressa Shields had once been the internet's underdog hero. Loud, confident, unfiltered, and unapologetically emotional, she built a fan base that admired her honesty as much as her talent. She said what others were too afraid to say. She showed anger, vulnerability, pride, and pain without polishing it for public comfort. For many supporters, that rawness felt refreshing, even brave dots. So when drama first surfaced around her personal life, particularly anything involving Remy Ma and Papoose, fans rushed to defend her without hesitation. They believed her emotions were real. They believed her reactions were justified. Most importantly, they believed her story because she told it with conviction. That belief is what made this moment hurt differently. The first time Claressa's narrative shifted, people noticed, but they were gentle. They reminded each other that emotions aren't fixed, that healing isn't linear, that someone can feel one way today and differently tomorrow. Contradictions were framed as growth. Supporters filled comment sections defending her, arguing with strangers, insisting that context mattered. Claressa seemed to lean into that grace. She reinforced the idea that she was processing everything in real time under intense public pressure. And many people accepted that explanation. Then it happened again. This time fans began noticing patterns. Statements no longer aligned with earlier interviews. New posts contradicted old ones. Her tone shifted from confident certainty to defensive explanation. Support didn't collapse overnight, it fractured quietly. Small cracks appeared. A few comments turned from praise into questions. Didn't she say the opposite before? Am one tripping, or is this different now? The mood was changing. Even if people weren't ready to say it out loud. What pushed everything over the edge was how sudden the most recent switch felt. One moment, Claressa appeared firm, resolved emotionally, settled. The next, she was backtracking, reframing herself as misunderstood, repositioning her words, softening what she had once emphasized with certainty. Fans didn't just feel confused. They felt played, because it wasn't only the story that changed. It was the attitude, the confidence with which she dismissed what she'd previously stood on. And the internet does not forget receipts. Clips began circulating side by side, old interviews paired with new ones, screenshots of captions placed next to fresh statements that directly contradicted them. Suddenly, it wasn't speculation anymore. It was comparison. And once comparison enters the conversation, emotion gives way to analysis. Support turns into scrutiny. That transition is dangerous for any public figure. The backlash didn't arrive as screaming hate. That's what made it more damaging. It came as disappointment. Fans said they felt tired. Others admitted they didn't know what to believe anymore. Some who once rode hard for Claressa now said, "I can't keep defending this." Emotional fatigue is far more destructive than outrage. Outrage burns hot and fast. Fatigue signals detachment, and detachment is where influence quietly dies. As this shift unfolded in real time, Remy Ma and Papoose remained largely silent. And that silence carried weight. In a culture where instant statements are expected and emotions are often performed publicly, their restraints stood out. Every calm appearance, every unbothered photo, every moment where they refused to respond, added to the narrative without them saying a single word. Silence, in this case, wasn't empty. It became a statement. By contrast, Claressa's emotional shifts felt amplified. Her reactions, timing, and vulnerability stood out sharply next to Remy and Papoose's composed presence. Whether that contrast was fair didn't matter in the court of public opinion. Perception took control. The internet began drawing conclusions. Remy appeared grounded and dignified. Papoose appeared measured and disciplined. Claressa was labeled reactive. Once that framing takes hold, it spreads fast. Social media thrives on simple storylines. It doesn't reward nuance. It flattens complexity into digestible labels. Claressa's humanity, her confusion, hurt, and attempt to process things publicly was reduced to a single word: emotional. Meanwhile, Remy's silence became strength. Papoose' distance became loyalty. None of these labels told the full story, but repetition made them feel true. What often gets lost in moments like this is the imbalance of expectation. Claressa was expected to carry her emotions quietly, privately, and gracefully while the situation unfolded publicly. When she failed to meet that impossible standard, criticism followed immediately. Remy benefited from a long-established public image built on composure. Papoose benefited from years of being associated with patience and loyalty. Those reputations didn't appear overnight, and they shaped how every action or lack of action was interpreted. Once a narrative hardens online, reversing it becomes nearly impossible. Claressa's words were scanned for weakness. Her pauses were framed as instability. Her honesty was recast as impulsiveness. And the louder the commentary grew, the harder it became for her to regain control of how she was perceived. Supporters argued that she was responding to new information, new emotions, new realizations. But critics pushed back harder this time. They accused her of rewriting history, of switching sides based on public reaction, of chasing control over a narrative slipping through her fingers. Unlike before, those accusations didn't get drowned out. They stuck. What made the situation especially uncomfortable was how personal it felt. This wasn't detached celebrity gossip. These were real emotions playing out in public. People weren't just reacting to Claressa's words. They were reacting to her pain. But sympathy has limits. Some fans began questioning whether Claressa ever truly knew what she wanted, or if she was reacting moment by moment to feedback online. Others suggested pride was driving the shifts, that admitting she was wrong might feel worse than switching again. And then there were those who believed she was simply overwhelmed, trapped between private feelings and public expectation, losing control of a story she once dominated. As criticism grew, Claressa's responses seemed to escalate instead of stabilize. Her tone sharpened, defensiveness crept in. And defensiveness, when paired with inconsistency, often reads as guilt, even when I send single quotes T. Every word, emoji, pause, and caption became a symbol. Nothing felt accidental anymore. The pressure intensified. This is where the situation turns psychological. Public switch-ups rarely come from nowhere. They come from fear of embarrassment, fear of being wrong, fear of losing control. Overperception. When that fear is experienced publicly, the instinct is often to grip the narrative tighter, even if that means reshaping it repeatedly. But the tighter the grip, the more visible the struggle becomes. By this point, the conversation wasn't just about what Claressa said. It was about trust. And once trust fractures, even truth sounds suspicious. Fans stopped asking, "Is she right?" They started asking, which version of her is real? That question cuts deeper than any insult. Engagement shifted. Critical posts outperformed supportive ones. Reaction videos multiplied. Commentary channels began calling her behavior a pattern. The most dangerous label in internet culture. One mistake can be forgiven. A pattern becomes an identity. Claressa now stood at a crossroads. Address the contradictions directly and risk vulnerability. Stay silent and let the narrative solidify. Or switch again and confirm. Every accusation being thrown her way. None of the options were safe. What's tragic about moments like this is how quickly they overshadow everything else. Achievements fade. Talent becomes background noise. Behavior replaces success as the headline. Claressa Shields' accomplishments didn't disappear. They just got quieter under the weight of controversy. And once public respect erodes, rebuilding it requires far more consistency than it took to lose as the drama escalated.